reserves, we're going to run out of petrol days or whatever.
Whenever anyone says not to panic, it does the
Exact opposite, right?
So they need to inflate the currency to give people that thinking, well, next year I'm going to earn more than this year. So it's actually a concept for the masses. The 3 L's are what breaks a person. And they're specifically talking about men. You've got liquor, ladies, and leverage.
So true.
And I'm sure it applies to women as well.
We're here again.
We're back again.
Wednesday.
We're doing a Wednesday podcast.
Wednesday. We called it in early.
So what happened on the weekend?
What happened on the weekend? What did we say last Friday? Oil was going to spike to 100 or above in the next couple of weeks.
Intense.
And it literally happens over the weekend.
Well, I saw on the weekend, it went from literally was what, 75, 80 bucks?
Yeah.
And then it opened on Monday 25% up.
Yeah.
115, 118 bucks.
Yeah.
And what was insane on the weekend was the lines at the petrol station were nuts.
Yeah.
And I was like, what people don't realize is if fuel, yes, you're going to fill up your car for a week or maybe a week and a half, but then you'll have to fill up again.
You have to fill up every week, right?
It's and the lines were 20, 30 deep, and I was like, it's like the toilet paper rationing at COVID time.
COVID again, yeah. But this time it's oil, petrol. The reality is as well is that we don't have, and we spoke about this last time, we don't have reserves.
Which is insane.
So, and this is the thing that shits me again about the media, is they come out and they say, don't panic, don't panic, don't panic. But then they're like, we don't have any reserves, we're going to run out of petrol in fucking 10 days or whatever.
Whenever anyone says not to panic, it does the
exact opposite, right?
But they know this.
Or how about coming out and being like, guys, we have a plan. Oh no, but that's too hard for the Labor government. Seriously.
100%.
What are they doing? We still haven't heard. It's the 11th of March, and we still haven't heard from the government about what they're doing about petrol.
And I saw an interesting thing I put onto my Instagram this morning. It's Australia's got so much resources. We supply...
That was a good post, man.
Good post. We supply 7 times more coal than we use. We have so much uranium, one of the biggest uranium reserves in the world. We also have a lot of oil, which is untapped.
We can have our own refineries.
Yeah, 100%. We can basically be self-sufficient. But what we've done is we've allowed big corporations, multinational corporations, to come in and just basically snap it all up for pennies on the dollar.
And we're still broke.
And we're still broke.
And we're still broke. Do the math. How do we get here? How do we get here?
I think it's self-interest. I think there's a lot of politicians which are definitely getting paid. But it's crazy to see. There's a conflict in the Middle East, and we're 15, 16 hours away by plane, and now we're getting dragged into it.
We both saw what happened yesterday. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago with the Iranian football team?
The football team. That was an interesting development that I saw, and I was like, firstly, I was of the view where they're not singing the anthem, and I suppose they have the right not to sing the anthem, that's their choice. But if it was me, I'd sing my anthem regardless of leader. I'm not too fond of the leader or the party that's there now, but still I'd stick up and sing my national anthem. But I think the move by the Australian government was probably more provocative.
This was the biggest problem. Look, the people have a right to do whatever they want, whatever they believe in. I don't have a problem with that, but we've made it our problem, and I would love for everyone to be safe, for sure. But I think when we look at where we are and how far we are away from the war and how safe we can be, we're now creating a problem.
Yeah, we're sort of dragging...
We're dragging ourselves into this conflict by keeping these women safe. And I think their safety is really important. Don't get me wrong. But it's are we now going to be putting ourselves at risk because of what we're doing? That's the question I'm asking.
I think so. All of a sudden now there's a target on the back.
Absolutely.
Now we're getting unnecessary attention because of this, because it is a political move.
It is.
And as much as people don't like Trump, Labor basically fell in line with exactly what the Trump administration wanted.
Which we both said would happen.
It happens
because we just rely on people too much.
It happens regardless. And I said this last week. It's you've got the Europeans staunching against Trump. You've got the British. You've got all these countries staunching, but now they're sending military in.
When it comes down to the wire, What Trump says, we do.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
You know, but it's going to cause big dramas for us here at home. Like especially,
I think so.
Next week we've got the RBA meeting, so interest rate decisions will need to happen. I think because oil prices have spiked up so fast, so quick, maybe they won't need to raise because the oil price increasing will sort of counteract any inflation that's sort of happening at the moment.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know,
that's a good point.
Fuel, like, you know, I saw the other day fuels are like at 220 per litre.
And that's just for E10.
Yeah, that's just for the cheapest.
I actually saw a guy, the guy that obviously runs the petrol station, you know, they go out and they check the oil to see how much is left.
Yeah.
And I did see that another petrol station had run out of 91.
Okay.
Not far from my place. But that's not to say like we're running out of oil or anything like that. But, you know, it does raise the question of, you know, how much do we have left? How long can we sustain this for if things don't clear up over there? And how is it going to affect, you know, food prices and everything else? And how do people respond?
Well, I think people already are having the mindset that, and the media is also assisting with this in a negative way.
Yeah.
You know, there's a scare campaign going on.
Yeah.
Fill up your cars. Shit's coming. There's going to be a drama, just like the toilet papers at COVID.
They kept showing how much wasn't on the shelves.
And then it's like you know, we're sort of manufacturing
Panic.
this panic.
Yeah.
You know? So it's going to definitely impact inflation. I have no doubt it will, because things are going to get more expensive. Food.
And the thing, like, if you just kind of, you know, rein it in and sort of look at things from above, instead of just looking outward and panicking and seeing what everyone's doing and whatever, like, I'm just calmly looking out for myself and my family. Like, go and buy some extra things that might last a little bit longer. Fill up your car as usual, right? Like, if oil runs out, petrol runs out, we said this last week, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
No one's going anywhere. So just stay home, like COVID. Like, go for a walk.
But there is a lot of oil in the world. Like, even in the Strait of Hormuz, it's only 20% of the global supply. And it's like, okay, it's going to have an impact on prices, but there is still oil out there.
There's oil in the world. It's just that the government haven't really announced with what we are doing to ensure that we still have it.
Yeah.
Which they need to do.
Yeah.
They need to be solution focused.
Well, in America, and we said this last week, they've got the strategic, the SPR, which is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be there for war times like this.
You
know, where there's going to be oil supply shock or shortage. But in saying that as well, America's self-sufficient when it comes to oil anyway. So, but it's just that forward thinking needs to come here.
It does.
You know, we have so much land. As if we cannot build a reserve and pump it when oil prices are cheap.
We have all the land in the world. We are the biggest island in the world. Like, we only have 27 million people.
I know. Like, just
most of Australia is uninhabited. Like, use it.
Yeah, and you just got to store it. I don't know how they store it. Maybe it's underground or it's above ground, but we have the land.
We have the land.
But you know, our governments don't think past tomorrow.
Past tomorrow, yeah, and that's the problem. We're also seeing that Trump is saying, you know, we're almost done, like the war is almost over, and that brought the oil prices down. But like I was saying to you before, like, it's the uncertainty that really affects the markets, right?
Well, the markets have moved insanely.
Yeah.
You know, from last week, if you bought, or even at the beginning of the week when it was low, to now, like the swings that have happened are like 10, 20%.
The biggest we've seen in decades, right?
Maybe not in decades, but like the biggest we've seen in a while.
A long time.
You know, maybe since COVID at least.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So, and if you were on the right side of that trade, you made a ton of money.
Yeah.
If you had cash, you made a ton of money in terms of buying stocks when they're lower, and then just exiting that position in a few days. You know, people made ridiculous money. You know, so it's a time to make money when everyone else is scared. But in saying that, for you to make those trades, you need to have the cash in your bank. You need to be liquid, and that's where, you know, you've got like Warren Buffett. You've got all these big money managers who are just stacking cash, to make money with all these opportunities.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, if you, like you said, you don't have that capital there laying around, you can't capitalize on these on these moments. Looking at the reality of where we are, like I've been talking a lot about like, you know, where fiat currency sits and like what I think it's going to become moving forward. Like if we think about when fiat currency first existed, it was back in the 1940s, right? After World War II. Mm-hmm. Like think about how like cheap things were to buy. Mm-hmm. Right, like a loaf of bread would have been, I don't know, 20 cents or shillings, whatever they were called back then. Like, we've always sort of been led to believe, you know, put your money in a bank account, mm-hmm. save your cash, yep. buy a house, all that jazz. But in 2026, a coffee costs you $7.
A shit coffee.
So I had this conversation with one of my coaches this morning because, you know, I like to kind of just plant some seeds and see what people sort of come up with when I let them know what's kind of happening. If you were to just leave $100,000 in your bank account and get your 2, 3, 4% interest over the years, and all the things that we buy have inflated. Our coffees have gone from $3, from what I can remember, up to $7. Is that $100,000 still worth $100,000?
No way.
No, right? So when you think about it like that, why the fuck would you save your money? Why would you put it in a bank account? And how can you not start to see that fiat currency cash has lost its purchasing power? Like, it is becoming worthless. And the biggest problem is they're about to print more because they have QE coming through, quantitative easing, which allows them the ability to print and print and print and print. So where do you put your cash right now?
Well, I heard an interesting concept a long time ago around the concept of inflation. And it was basically, it's been done on purpose, and now it's going to sound a bit out there, but could you imagine a worker getting paid the same amount of money every single year? Probably not. You know, so they need to inflate the currency to give people that thinking, well, next year I'm going to earn more than this year. So it's actually a concept for the masses. That's what I read, and I thought that was pretty interesting. But what happens is, if you keep inflating the currency, it starts to become worthless. When it becomes worthless, like you said, a coffee now is $7 compared to $3. You know, house prices are $1 million compared to 500,000. But what happens is, essentially, inflation is a tax. It's a tax on fiat currency. And what happens over time as well is a crisis or crises will happen, like a war, like a GFC, and then it gives the ability for governments to print even more of that cash. This is why you've seen property investors who own, if you own property before COVID, even if you owned only one, you own 1 or 10 or whatever, you are rolling in it. Because what happens is the economy froze, and what does the government do? They print cash. They literally devalue their currency on purpose. And what happens is, if you devalue your currency, you have more cash or more dollars chasing the same amount of assets. So then people start bidding things up. And that's essentially what happens. And that's why you've seen house prices go absolutely berserk from 2020. You know, before that, it was house prices were increasing, but not at 10% per year nationally on average, or 15% in some places. And it's gone really fast, really hard, because you had people not working. The government, or world governments, printed trillions and trillions of dollars
to save the
economy. And what happens? It goes to the upper or to the high classes of the community, because they're the ones that own the assets. So of course they're the ones that want to print more money, and the cycle just continues. And this is why you've got the big divide between the rich and the poor. You know, the government's trying to close that gap, but they're not closing that gap by printing more money, because it doesn't work. You know,
are they really trying to close the gap?
Well, you also have to see it from their perspective. These guys have a lot of money as well. They have assets, so
they're in the upper echelon of people.
Exactly. So this is where, you know, things to think about. They're trying, but are they really trying?
They tell you they're trying, and they make it look like they're trying. But when you look at the numbers, like in business, numbers tell you everything. Right? One of the most important lessons I ever learned: be good with people, but know your fucking numbers. Right? And in a crisis, in a situation like this, if you look at the numbers and you look at inflation and you look at your wages and you look at where you stand in the position you are right now,
You're going backwards.
having worked harder than ever,
Yeah.
you and I both know this, we've worked so hard in the last fucking 10 years to get to where we are, and it's still fucking hard.
Yeah.
Why?
You need
Why?
to.
What else can you do?
Well, you need to have a 200 plus salary per person to even get into the Sydney property market. You know, that's how far it's gone the other way.
Which is so unrealistic.
It's unrealistic.
Because if you got kids, you got to look after them. Like you can't, and you get a nanny, it costs you $250 a day.
Oh, forget about nanny.
Like-
even if you give it to childcare.
Childcare, yeah.
You know, if you give it to childcare and you don't get the credit, the childcare subsidy, you know, you're paying probably 35, 40 grand per year, and two people have to work. You know, so this is where, you know, because I always am of a firm view that you shouldn't have too much debt.
Yeah.
Because when you have too much debt, it just means
You're too
have
leveraged.
options.
Yeah.
You're too leveraged. You know, I heard this interesting thing this morning. The 3 L's are what breaks a person. And they're specifically talking about men. You've got liquor, ladies, and leverage,
So true.
which is true. You know, all those three
So
things.
true.
And I'm sure it applies to women as well.
Yeah.
The opposite way.
Yeah.
But those three things break anyone. And you see,
Yeah.
you know, I see it on Facebook all the time, where you've just got people trying to sell buying properties, which are great. Properties are great, don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, but they're using extreme leverage.
Yeah.
You know, if you're using extreme leverage, things are great when things are going up, but now all of a sudden now you've got interest rates going up, and now the cash flow changes, like you were saying. You can look at the numbers are changing.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to think of it, even like, say, this oil price shock, the inflation shock, what does that mean? You know, it means things are getting more expensive. Rents, are you going to be able to increase your rent to cover the additional mortgage you're going to pay with higher interest rates
When people are making no money.
when people are making no money?
Yeah.
You know, and it causes this vacuum or this cycle, which, you know, I think we're heading into shortly.
Yeah, the cycle's finishing. And you can look at this, it's called the 100-year cycle. And in that 100 years, the 80th year is where the reset happens.
Oh wow! So after
This is actually a proven system. You can look back at it through the centuries before us, and there are multiple factual evidence that this system, this cycle that we have, happens all the time. And you only have to look at, you know, human behavior and pattern to kind of not even predict the future. It's what's actually happening. Do you know what I mean? So. And this is the thing, like, if you are caught up in drinking alcohol, in running around with women and doing those things and drugs and like working really hard and scrolling all the time and all those sort of things, right, which is what probably happens a lot of the time.
I get sucked into the scrolling as well.
Yeah.
Like you just get in there.
Recently, I gave up social media, 100 days, I did that. Stopped drinking, right? And just the amount of clarity you get from those things, honestly, I think that's what's helped me sort of see where we are and what's happening. You know, and it's not about predicting, it's just being more aware.
Just watching.
And noticing situations unfold and going, hang on a minute, that doesn't make sense. Why would I keep my money in a bank account when it's going to be worth less money? You know? So, like, you just, I can't stress this enough, really. You have to think about how you can preserve your wealth. Because if you don't, it won't be there. Like, look at what happened to supers over the weekend. $91 billion was lost in superannuation over a weekend. Over 2 weeks, it was $200 billion. I literally told my mum last Thursday to take her super out, and she did it. I was like, she did it. I go, there you go.
You just made yourself, what, 10%?
And that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't so aware of what's going on. So for those people that are coming to retirement as well, if you have a couple years left in work, really need to consider what you're doing with your super, because if you leave it in there, you could lose a lot of it.
Well, it just depends how bad this situation gets. You know, like I lived through the 2008 GFC.
Yeah.
And I just started working around that time, and it was insane. I remember going to work and the phones just stopped ringing, and that was like COVID. You know, like when I went to work in 2008 or 2007, 2008ish, and the phones just didn't ring.
Yeah.
And then I remember there was a credit crunch, because then businesses stop paying other businesses to conserve cash.
Yeah.
You know, and then I got called into the office saying we need to cut your hours.
Yeah.
Because now we are owed money. We're not getting paid, so we're not paying our suppliers. So now we can't pay you.
Fuck.
And this all happened in the space of a couple of weeks.
Like that.
Yeah, like
See,
that.
I was still drinking alcohol at this point, so I didn't even know. I was young.
I was drinking and I was doing all that stuff as well. But it was like.
But you were in the workforce.
I was in the workforce, but then it was like, you know, all of a sudden your income drops and you're like, fuck.
Damn.
Like,
What do I do now?
They were like, we have to cut. I think it was because I was working part time, so maybe 2.5 days a week. They're like, we've got to cut a day.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, fuck, that's like a 20-30% haircut.
Yeah.
So that means I'm going to spend less now because I have less cash to spend.
Yeah. And that's a ripple effect.
It just keeps going.
It just moves through the whole of society.
And, but I think this time it's probably going to happen a lot faster.
Yeah.
Like the GFC back in 2007, the whole thing
dragged out
about 2 years.
Yeah.
It started in 2007 September, didn't really hit until like 2009 March.
The interesting thing with this one is that it's actually been happening since June last year. Like I've been noticing this stuff since June last year.
Well, if you're not in the AI trade,
Yeah.
you're losing money.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not invested in American tech,
Yeah.
which is what's been driving most of the investment gains, if you haven't been invested in those assets, then you probably have gone backwards. You know, and if your super fund's got an exposure, they probably do have an exposure to US tech, and that's why it's gone up. But if you look at things like, you know, you've got the S&P 500, which are the top 500 companies in the US. If you take out the Mag 7, they call it, which is like Apple, Nvidia, Tesla, if you take out the top 7, the other companies below it didn't make money last year. Like the S&P, they call it the S&P 490 or 492. You know, because it's like the rest of the companies are just getting by.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is telling. Yeah. The other thing that I noticed was that BlackRock withheld people withdrawing their money.
So that's where it starts to get scary.
Now that is massive. I don't think people really realise the magnitude of that situation.
When you have fund managers not giving you cash back.
The biggest fund managers.
You know, like, and this is what's scaring people.
Yeah.
You know? And remember, by the time this hits the retail market, so this came out in the news this week.
Yeah.
It's too late.
It's too late. So
guys,
we're in the final stages.
I think so. The big guys who have got the biggest amount of money and exposure have already exited. They're already out. So now it's like the retail guys like you and me going, well, fuck, I have got whatever 100,000 invested in a BlackRock ETF. I want to sell the whole 100 to get it out. They're like, no. You can only take 5%.
Now, imagine that.
On the biggest scale.
Imagine if you invested $100,000 into an asset manager to, invest your money, and you got told that you couldn't take out your own money.
Yeah.
This is what banks can do in a crisis, because banks make money off your money. They invest your cash. So if you leave 100 grand in a bank account, right, they'll then lend it out to the next person as a loan, right? A home loan, whatever. Then they'll do it again, and they'll 10x your 100 grand. So what happens if they are over leveraged in debt? A crisis happens, and shit hits the fan.
Well, that's what happened in the GFC,
right? So, like, this is the stuff you really need to think about, because these things become very real in a crisis.
Well, that's what happened in the GFC. You had Bear Stearns, which is a big UK bank. They went under, and it just sort of caused a ripple-on effect, because the money that they were owing to other people wasn't going to get paid.
Yeah.
So then those people were like, oh shit, I'm not getting my investment back, so I can't pay the next person. And then it just ripples down.
Yeah.
It ripples down. And then you had, I think it was AIG, the insurance company in America, backing these loans.
Yeah.
Like mortgage lenders insurance.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the exposure became too big.
Yeah.
And then they couldn't afford to pay out these loans. And then they went under. And it's like, it all happened pretty quick.
Yeah.
You know, so I think here as well, you've got to be very careful with these situations unfolding. Yeah. We just had a UK bank as well, went down last week. Nobody's talking about it.
No one.
You know, and they call this contagion risk. You know, because when one thing happens, it just sort of flows on.
It's a domino.
It's a domino. Obviously the media doesn't want to talk about this.
No.
Because then it causes a crisis. Well, look what's happening with petrol.
Yeah.
You know, petrol's gone from $1.60 to $2.20.
But they'll choose the right things in their mind to talk about.
Well, that's the distraction.
Yeah.
The petrol prices.
Yeah. The other interesting thing that I've been talking about over the last few weeks is the Japanese carry trade. So the yen to oil price went to 18,000 yen from about 9,000. That's a huge indicator as to whether the interest rates of the Japanese yen are going to go up. So for years and years and years, decades, the Japanese yen has been at zero interest, right? So a lot of American investors would trade their American dollars for cheap yen, and then buy stocks and bonds, the bond market. So when this happens, the BOJ, the Bank of Japan, have no choice but to increase their rates, which they already did last meeting. They increased their rates. So you can only say that they're going to increase their rates again and again and again. So we're going to see the bond market sell out massively.
And we're talking about big institutions.
Massive.
Like we're talking billions and billions, trillions.
It's one of the biggest markets in the world, right?
Exactly. And when they have an increase of even 25 basis points or 10 basis points.
The tiniest amount, because they've borrowed so much money that even 2.25 is hundreds of millions of dollars.
Billions. Dollars. So, those investors who are usually countries, like we're not talking about you and me.
No. We're not the big boys.
We're not going to buy $100,000 a yen or dollars to yen or whatever. We're talking billions and trillions. So you've got countries investing in other countries doing these reverse carry trades, essentially. Now it's becoming too expensive. So what do? They have to start selling their position. And that's why I think Bitcoin, especially, went from 100 US down to now it's like around 65, 70, and it's getting moved around because there's a shortage of US dollars, essentially. Like there's not as much cash. So now, naturally, they start selling down their positions and things like this happen.
And the interesting thing is that a lot of the banks in Japan have been using the XRP ledger. Right? So the XRP and Ripple...
I love it how you bring XRP into it.
Because it's involved. It is legitimately involved. Like you can look it up. Like it's there. So XRP have an offline ledger that they've been using in the background to process payments, right? To see how quick it works and all that sort of stuff. So what happens when everyone sells out of the bond market? There's going to be a massive liquidity crisis.
It's going to go somewhere.
It's going to crash, right? It's going to just, shit's going to hit the fan. Like the current infrastructure for payments can't handle that much money. So who do they use?
They're going to use someone.
They've got to use someone.
They're going to use someone.
And who's onboarded?
I've seen that too. XRP basically is already been accepted by the banks as well.
Not only are they involved with the banks in Japan, they're involved with the banks in Europe. They're involved with Australia because the Australian digital dollar is on the XRP ledger. It's on the website. It is literally there. It says XRP ledger. So it's just fascinating, like how much has moved in the direction of digital currency and a new payment system.
It's definitely got to go somewhere, and I think that's why, like, even at the moment, everyone's discounting the US dollar. They're thinking the US dollar is worthless, and this is why you've got the Aussie dollar sort of peaking. If you're traveling overseas, if you can get onto a plane to get to Europe, it's a good time to go. It's like
if you can get there.
If you can get there. I actually have a friend stuck in Dubai or Doha. It's been like a week or two, and he's like, I can't do anything. I'm just stuck in the hotel. What is it actually like over there? As he said, is it bad or? Well, he's just said to me that there's not much to do, like not many places to go. I think everyone's a bit scared as well. He's probably scared himself. So this is why you can see the US dollar going up. US dollar's going up. The Australian dollar's going up because everyone thinks the US dollar is weaker. You've also got the fact that interest rates will probably go up in Australia as well. So that's putting pressure on the AUD to go higher. But I think ultimately this is where the US dollar will prevail. And I think in the next few months, the US dollar will still return to where it's supposed to be, because all these things that they're doing is to try and cement their position in the world as the dominant currency, as the dominant player. And I think so far, even though it's not looking like it with their conversion, I think it's going to work.
I guess we'll find out. The other thing that you asked me the other week was where I thought Bitcoin was going.
What do you think?
And I couldn't get it out of my head because I was like, I don't really know much about its position right now, and I need to know. I'm just one of those people. So interestingly enough, the American government, the US government, is now officially treating Bitcoin as a permanent reserve asset, similar to the gold bars sitting in Fort Knox. So that was on March 5th. Trump signed an executive order establishing the strategic Bitcoin reserve. That's a bit of a tongue twister. Far out. I'll say that again. So as of March 5th, Trump signed an executive order establishing the strategic Bitcoin reserve.
Okay. He's definitely the crypto president.
Well, he wants to be.
You know.
And the Clarity Act is right there. And that's to regulate certain cryptocurrencies. So my thinking is that Bitcoin is going to be the digital gold, so that you don't have to move around bricks of gold. So it'll be a 1-to-1 ratio. So if gold is worth $20,000 US, Bitcoin is worth $20,000 US.
The only thing I don't understand how it's going to work, it's this whole backing thing. It's like, okay, Bitcoin's going to be backed by a certain amount of gold, but who's going to hold that gold? Where? You know?
Well, I mean, banks.
Yeah, but we don't...
Because banks are becoming regulated with cryptocurrency. Like it's literally happening right now.
But even like Fort Knox, right? The American US Reserve Bank, like no one knows how much gold is in there. And no one can see it.
No.
You know, so it's like, for me, for that something like this to actually get up, it's like we'd have to see the gold somewhere sitting, you know, for me to believe it's backed by gold. Because at the moment, like you've got, you know...
I see what you're saying.
Like you've got the, you know, people say the fiat currency, it's worthless. It's like the US dollar is worthless. It's like, no, it's not really worthless, even though it's just paper. It's still backed by a government, it's still backed by a military, it's still backed by a system, you know what I mean?
But what happens when it changes?
And I agree, you know, things may change, but for people to, like, those three things I've said, the government, the policies, the procedures, the military, that's what backs a currency. You know? For me, Bitcoin, it's like, if it's going to be backed by gold or whatever it is, how do we know it's backed?
But didn't when the gold standard came in, didn't gold back the currency?
It did, and then they took it off.
Yeah.
They took it off.
So wouldn't it be a similar concept?
But I think back then everybody trusted the US government to basically administer it. Now you've got countries which are a lot more disjointed. No, you know, does Russia believe or does Europe believe that Trump has this gold in?
But I think this is where maybe XRP comes in, because XRP is meant to be the neutral bridge asset, not owned by any country.
Okay.
And regulated by Ripple Bank.
Okay.
Yeah. Holy shit. I think I just figured that out. Because Ripple have applied for their banking license.
Okay. Okay.
So who's to say that it doesn't fall under Ripple Bank?
Hey, look, it could, but then, you know, Ripple Bank would probably have to be in multiple countries.
Like the BIS.
Yeah, 100%. You know.
We already have one now. The BIS is the central bank of the world.
Yeah. But yeah, I think before there's mass adoption, I think that's what they've got to overcome. You know, it's like, like it's like, you know, it does.
But like that they will overcome that though, because that's what Trump wants to do. He wants to be the crypto capital of the world.
But then you've got a country like China who doesn't take a bar of it, you know. So it's like, are they going to be excluded from the system? And it does at the moment. Trump is blueing at Spain. I think the Spain president, they're bluing is like as if he's going now to believe
smoke and mirrors, smoke and mirrors. This is the thing. Like you can't, you know, they say all this stuff, and Trump said he was going to be the peace president. Yeah. Fucking, where are we? Like it's smoke and mirrors, man. Yeah. It's smoke and mirrors. Anyway, it's interesting topic, and that was kind of off the cuff talking about that. But it could be under the Ripple Bank, yeah.
It could be.
It could be. I don't know. Something to stay tuned on. But yeah, that's after you asked me about Bitcoin. I personally think it's going to be the digital gold. It'll be backed 1-to-1 ratio. Okay. How it's going to work, I guess we'll find out. I don't know.
So do you reckon the wars? How long is it going to last?
Years.
Years, you reckon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Years.
Okay.
I think it's only just gotten started.
Okay.
Yeah. I just can't see how it's going to be short. I mean, there's 92 million Iranians in that country. Half of them are Shia Muslim. They have tunnels underground with massive amounts of weapons. Like, there's no way there's just no way that they're going to give up.
I think the world and the Americans are underestimating.
I think so.
You know, like, and the Americans have gone out hard. You know, they've gone with force.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was full force, but
the thing is as well is like, what defines a war, right? Like, personally, I think we've been in World War III for ages. I think it's only just looking like we've just started it because on the surface it's on the news. But really, when you look at like Ukraine and what's happened in Venezuela and what was happening in Thailand and Cambodia, like there were all these little wars that were happening, and then even Lebanon and Israel and Palestine and Gaza, like, and Israel.
Yep.
Like, there's been a lot of wars going on for a while, and they've included the world. So, you know, maybe the bombing stops in Iran, but I don't think the war stops. You know, it could be trade wars, it could be sleeper cells in America we're hearing about at the moment.
Well, I think
cyber attacks.
I think what America will do, and this is just my view, is they're probably devaluing the Iranian currency. You know,
Massively.
And then what's going to happen is Iran then can't purchase food. You know, and then, because at the moment, like you said, there's 92 million people who are divided.
Yeah.
But then give that a few weeks and people are not eating, and then things start to change.
Well, they need to survive.
They need to survive.
Yeah.
And then, like, I think that's where it's going to happen. I think, I don't think it's going to last years. I think in the next few weeks, few months, it should be over, because I don't think it's going to sustain that long.
Yeah.
You know?
My barber is Persian.
Okay.
His family live in Tehran and Isfahan. And we were talking about it. I was like, you know, are they okay? And he said, yep, they're fine. They're, you know, at home, staying in shelter. And he showed me videos of what was going on. The place is a mess, like legit a mess. And I asked him, I said, do you think this will be over quickly? And he said, no. He goes, the regime over there, they don't give up.
Yeah.
They sacrifice their lives. Like,
and we've seen it over like centuries, right?
We've seen it over centuries.
Like, this
is more than a political war as well.
Yeah.
You have to remember that. This is a religious war. Whether you want to admit it or not, like, it's in their prophecies. It's what they talk about. It's what they pray about, you know, among other things. But it's not just a political war. It's not just about money either, you know. So, I don't know. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I do. I hope the war's over tomorrow and no one else dies and, you know, we can all get on with it. But I'm a realist. I just think realistically it goes on. But we'll see.
We'll see.
All right, we'll see.
All right, until next week.
Till next week. Peace.